A man who wears the 10 pounds of gold. The nature boy, Ric Flair.
You know, I always like to take this opportunity to talk about myself. Woo! Woo!
The 16-time heavyweight champion has arrived.
I've got the style and profile like never before.
The greatest talker in the history of the business is behind the mic once again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing, limousine like, jet flying, son of a gun. Woo!
This is Wooooo Nation with Ric Flair.
I'm the man. Ric Flair.
Hey, this is the Nature Boy Ric Flair, 16 times your world champion and the host of Wooooo Nation, along with my great co-host, wealthiest man in Alabama, entrepreneur, lover of women, wine, and Crown Royal, owner of the Conradison Estate, okay? And Conrad, today we have a guy who is not only great at what he does, he is the reason that I have a podcast today. He is a musical artist. He is a great wrestler. He does what he wants to do. He is happily married, beautiful children, everything working out the way it should be. And we're on a mission to make sure he stays married, sure. So he only sees me on a limited basis. But our friend today, and the best way to do it is talk is Jericho. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Jericho. Chris, how are you, sir?
It was a hell of an introduction, man. It isn't saying like being the wealthiest man in Alabama. It's like saying you have the most teeth in Alabama.
See, I right away said this is what we need on the show, some controversy.
There it is.
Fire up, Nate. You taught me how to do it, baby. Woo, let's go. Come on. Here we go. Controversy.
So, Chris, the thing I can't get over is you are able to say what you want to say and get away with it, crack on everybody what's going on in the company, and you don't ever have any whiplash. I don't say anything because of Ashley, and consequently, my podcast is boring. So, Chris, light us up today, and I won't comment or say I agree, other than that you get all the heat, okay?
Well, I mean, it's not really heat, Rick. It's just that I tell my opinions, and I don't, and you'll understand this after being in this business, and not just in the wrestling business, but for being in show business for 25 years. I don't like fake people, and I don't like being fake as a return. So I always give my opinion exactly how I feel. And sometimes people don't like it, but you always know that I'll give you my my true thoughts and feelings. And I think in the WWE, when you have a guy like Vince, who obviously is surrounded by a lot of yes men, because that's just the nature of the beast, I think he feels very refreshed that I'm not a yes man, and I'll always give my opinion. Does he always agree with me? No. But at least I say what I feel is best for what we're trying to do in the business. And sometimes it's not popular, and sometimes it is. But that's how I've kind of made my way through 25 years of doing this. And believe me, when I first came to WWE, people hated me because of it. But I can't do it any other way because I love the business too much. So I always have to feel that I have to say what I think is best for what needs to be done. And whether that's popular or not, I'll deal with it later.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very cool. I just, I've like said from day one, it's just hard. My podcast is fun, and I've had some great people like Lawrence Taylor. I mean, you name it, I've had him on. Mongo had Mongo on, who actually,
wow.
who actually, Conrad was speechless listening to Mongo talk. So I mean,
yeah, when he talks about taking girls' scholarships, that's the funniest thing that's ever been said on the program.
You know what's great? When I was in WCW, for whatever reason, I'm not sure exactly because, Rick was always, you were always with your crew. And it seemed like my crew always ended up at the end of the night was me. Here's a motley crew for you. Me, Raven, Kurt Hennig, and Mongo.
Wow.
For whatever reason, it was always the four of us at the end of the night. So we ended up calling ourselves the Drunken Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
Because by that time of the night, it was only the four of us. And I'll tell you what, I don't have to tell you, Rick, and you've had him on the show, so I'm sure your listeners know. Mongo is one of the nicest guys I've ever met, one of the funnest guys to hang out with, and one of the craziest people I've ever been around as far as, the proverbial take the Jack Daniels bottle and smash it over his head just to show you he could do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And continue on like nothing ever happened. What a true rock star in the business to be around. Even though he came from football, he totally understood what it was that we do both in the ring and outside the ring afterwards.
Yeah, and like you say, a fabulous guy and fearless.
Yeah.
Fearless. I could never figure out why he let Scott Hall bug him like he did, but I guess.
Well, but Scott Hall could do that. He was great at being able to get under your skin.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of got off on that. He enjoyed that, and because he sure got under my skin. I'll tell you that.
I know. I just kept waiting for Mongo to go off one day, but he never did. He just ate his chicken wings and drank his beer and his Jack Daniels.
But how it was though, Rick. You're talking about that time in WCW with NWO and that sort of thing. They had a lot of stroke and they had a lot of power. So I think unless you really wanted to get into it, if you didn't want, not that Mongo would have lost his job, but hey, those guys had a lot of strokes, so maybe it was just easier just to ignore those guys or not do anything retaliation wise because you didn't want to suffer the consequences. But
I've seen him walk. They've done that. He's been up Mongo's butt all night long, and then they leave together. So, yeah, you know what I mean. So you know the deal.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's just like he just said. He doesn't have any. What's the word I'm looking on? He just doesn't have any. He is so happy with his personal life now. He's got remarried, and he's got the baby, and he's just a different guy. But Steve, when we first meet him, he brings so much energy. Aside from the fact he's 6'5" and 300 pounds, he brings so much energy around and laughs and just has a good time. And a regular guy, you'd never know that Steve was any more than just a guy that was, one of us from day one.
Yeah. No, he fit right in. There's certain guys that just fit right in there, and he was one of them for sure.
Yeah. Hey, listen, so need to make this very apparent to everybody. Chris and I have another, we have a lot of things in common, but one of them is our love of hockey. And even though the Winnipeg Jets aren't there anymore, are they?
Oh. No, they're there. Let me put it to you this way.
Okay.
They're there in name and presence, but as far as any type of success since they came back to Winnipeg 5 years ago, they're definitely not there. I think they're last place right now or close to it.
They still are a franchise in Winnipeg? I didn't even know it.
They came back. Actually, they came from Atlanta. The Thrashers moved to Winnipeg about 5 years ago. So, and talk about revitalizing the whole city. You know Winnipeg. You worked there many times.
Oh, sure.
But as a city, when we grew up there, when I grew up in Winnipeg, it's a very, very cold city in the wintertime. And basically, it's based around wrestling, hockey, and rock and roll. Like, those are the three things that I was into when I was a kid. And the Jets were a part of your DNA. Mm-hmm. And when the Jets left Winnipeg in 1995, the whole city was just, it's like ripping the heart out of that city. There was no buzz. There was no joy. There was nothing. I've never seen a city affected by losing their sports team as bad as Winnipeg was when the Jets left.
Oh, I know. Well, it's that whole chapter of when Bobby Hull left the Blackhawks to go to the Winnipeg Jets. That brought so much notoriety to Winnipeg. As harmful it was to Bobby's career at that time, he got the money, had the farm, and all that. And I still see Bobby once in a while now. and he's still pretty witty, Chris. So I wonder, does your dad? Oh, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, Chris's father played 13 years or 14?
Well, he played 13 pro. He played 10 in the NHL.
Yeah. So I was pretty
67
close.
to 77 in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, in the NHL, which speaks volumes because it's a tough. He played back when the guys were real, like John Ferguson and
yeah, old time hockey.
Ted
man.
Green and all those guys. Yeah. So Chris and I have always had. One time I brought Edge and Christian, and Chris and I love hockey, right? So I brought the best of Bob Probert. The 7-tape series, and when we put it on in the lunchroom where everybody was watching Raw, and everybody was pissed off. I went, "What do you guys? What do you march for yourself? You can watch yourself in another room." God, you remember we were watching that, and everybody got pissed off. I thought, Jesus Christ, have some kind of a life with the best of Bob Probert.
Well, he was a killer, man. That's for sure. He was one of the toughest guys.
Well, you were there when he came to Rockford, right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely, I was.
Yeah, when Tank Abbott thought he was going to kick his ass. That didn't work out for Tank. he told Tank when they even got in the ring, don't even think about it, fat boy.
It's so funny to think about that stuff. Like, once again, going back to WCW, I forgot. Like, I wasn't there at the time. I'd already gone to WWE. But that Tank Abbott was even there. Like WCW was just throwing everything up against the wall. Something would stick at that point in time. Before the end came. But I remember Tank Abbott, man. Well,
that's unbelievable. I mean, Chris. I mean, I can say this, and things work out for everybody, periodically in life. But you made the right move at the right time, and God, look where you are now. The National Academy of Sports Medicine is looking for people who want an exciting career in the fitness industry, where you wake up every day doing something you love. NASM trainers are improving people's lives by helping them reach their health and fitness goals, and the demand for these trainers is huge. Imagine waking up every day excited to get to work. Not a job, but to a rewarding career. Getting paid to stay in shape while helping others reach their fitness goals. You set your own hours, work in health clubs, sports clinics, and corporate wellness, and you'll love who you work with. Do what you truly enjoy and get paid for it. There is no better time than now to get started on your certification with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. Plus, NASM guarantees you'll land a job as a personal trainer within 60 days of earning your CPT certification, or your money back guaranteed. Go to myusatrainer.com for a free 14-day free trial of their fast and fun online program. That's myusatrainer.com, myusatrainer.com. Restrictions apply. Visit myusatrainer.com for details. Woo!
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting because, and once again, I mean, all about this stuff because back in those days, like the Monday Night War was a real thing, and it's been kind of legendized now, and people talk about the Monday Night War, but when we were in the middle of it, it was the real deal. So I went to WCW in '96 basically because WWE wasn't calling me. I didn't have any type of interaction with WWF. But that's where I always wanted to go because, once again, growing up in Winnipeg, it was a WWE territory. It was AWA and then switched over to WWE. So I hardly ever saw you wrestle. NWA never, because we never got it in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
The only way I could ever see that was looking at the aftermags. So to me, WCW, I was giving it my all, but I always had my eye on going to WWE. And then you know how WCW was. You didn't really get as much of a chance as you could because it was just the way it was. Certain things were done certain ways, and that was fine. But I actually went. I had a friend of mine. His name was Don Tallis. He was working in the WWF as the Jackal. It was was like a manager, and he was also working a little bit in the office. So he worked very closely with Vince Russo, and Vince Russo said, "Listen, that Jericho guy, we really want him to come to work for us. So if you have any connection with him, let him know that we're looking to talk to him." So Don told me that. This was the Christmas time of '98, and I was under contract until the following August of '99. So it was about 10 months out. And we had a Nitro in Chicago at the United Center, and then the next day, I flew from Chicago to New York City in a secret meeting. It was like a secret under-the-covers meeting where I was picked up by Vince's limousine driver, his name was Tommy, and there was a sign that he had that said, like, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
And that was my kayfabe name, was Johnson, because they didn't want anybody to know that I was getting picked up to go to Vince's house to have this meeting. And I'm under contract at WCW, okay? So I go to Vince's house in Connecticut. It's the only time I've ever been there. And I knock on the door, and Shane McMahon opens the door, and he's like, "Hey, Chris, how are you?" And I go inside, and sitting at a table, it's Vince, Shane, Bruce Pritchard, Russo, Jim Ross, and that other cat, I think his name is Ed, another writer guy. And they were having a booking meeting to discuss that week's Raw. And they invited me to sit down with them. Okay? So think about how crazy it is. I'm under contract with WCW, sitting down at a meeting, a booking meeting for next week's Raw at Vince McMahon's house. Right? So just imagine me, like I'm 20, whatever I was, 27 years old, not knowing what the hell is going on, and just like, why am I here? Like I thought I was just coming to have a meeting with Vince, and now I'm sitting at a booking meeting. And then they're asking my opinion. What do you think D'Lo Brown should go over this? What do you think, Chris? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Okay. And then they ordered lunch, and I remember I got a roast beef sandwich because Vince told me, the roast beef is good. So I said, well, I'll have a roast beef sandwich then, Vince. And they were eating lunch while they're writing the freaking show for Raw that week.
Yeah.
So just like, that would never happen again. And I'm still not completely sure why it happened then. I did ask Vince about it years later, and he said, well, I wanted to see if I could trust you. I wanted to see if I could bring you in here and have this booking meeting and see if it would get out the next day. And when I knew I could trust you, that's when I really wanted you to come work for me. So that was kind of how it all started. But that would never happen these days. It would never happen again.
Yeah.
But at the time, that's kind of this weird way that I first met Vince.
Well, Chris, go back in time for everybody. So after that, how did you get out of your contract? Because you left early, right?
Well, no, I didn't leave early. What happened was, around that time, because Bischoff obviously didn't know about this meeting with Vince. Nobody knew. I kept it total secret. It never got out. But I had this meeting with Eric at a couple months beforehand where he wanted to re-sign me. Because my deal was originally 3 years, and this was after 2 years, and he wanted to re-sign me early. And I had just turned heel, and I had done the thing with Goldberg where Goldberg didn't want to work with me, and it just turned into a real mess. So I knew that there was really no reason to stay in WCW, because even if I had this great storyline with Goldberg where they put me in a match with a midget Goldberg, and I claimed it was the real Goldberg, and I beat him, so then Goldberg's streak was broken. It was Jericho 1, Goldberg 0.
Yeah.
And then the next week I came out and challenged him to come fight me in the ring right there, even though I knew he wasn't in the building. So I had a 10 count. 10 count. He couldn't make the call, so I win again. Jericho 2, Goldberg 0. So I kind of co-created with Terry Taylor this whole little angle of mine where I was brewing this feud with Goldberg that he wasn't really involved with. And he didn't like that, Goldberg. He thought it was comedy, and he was getting mad at me. And I'm like, dude, go talk to the bookers. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm just doing what I can do. And meanwhile,
I love that.
Fans had signs in the crowd, Jericho 4, Goldberg 0, or Goldberg's going to kill you, or Goldberg. And my idea was, I'll do this angle, and then we'll have a pay-per-view match, and then he can squash me, but it'll be like the greatest squash match of all time.
Yeah.
I'd seen this squash match that the Road Warriors had with Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond. And it was like the best match I'd ever seen, but it was a total squash.
Mm-hmm.
And Pat Tanaka was so good at just selling everything. And, so that was what my idea was. And that was kind of the tentative plan. So, long story short, I showed up one day in Phoenix for Nitro, and they said, you're working with Goldberg tonight. And I said, well, what's the finish? They said, same finish as every night. He, jackhammers and spears you in a minute. And I said, well, why are we doing this? We just built up these last 4 weeks of, me claiming that I beat Goldberg 4 times. I thought we were going to do this on a pay-per-view. And they said, no, we're not going to do it. And I said, to myself, I was thinking, you know what? I'm standing up for myself because I know this is good and I know it can draw money. And I just said, no, I'm not doing it. And I remember, I think it was Terry Taylor said, it's never bad to lose to the world champion. I mean, it's a good thing. You're losing to the world champ. I said, not in a minute. I said, we're doing the pay-per-view. We're doing the 5-minute squash, just like we talked about. Not doing it. And then I went and hid. I went and hid in the upstairs. It's a trick I learned from Benoit. I went and hid upstairs until the show started. They couldn't find me. They just forgot about it. So I didn't have to do it. Typical WCW disorganized. So then the next week I show up in Long Island.
That's great.
Just hide, right? So the next week I show up in Long Island, and they said the same thing. They said, okay, Jericho versus Goldberg, he's going to pin you in a minute. I was like, no, we're not doing this. And so I got called into a meeting in Long Island at the Uniondale Coliseum. And it was me and Goldberg and Bischoff and Hogan. Hogan was in there for some reason.
Yeah.
And, at the time, once again, I'm a nobody, man. I'm just trying to make my way, and I'm intimidated by Bischoff and by Hogan. Like, that's Hulk Hogan. I never had any real interaction with Hulk at that point in time. So the three of them were basically yelling at me, like, why are you refusing to do a job to Goldberg? And why are you doing this? And who do you think you are? And I was like, I'm not refusing to do a job for Goldberg. I'm just sticking to the plan to this angle that got over. Look at the signs in the crowd. Because Jimmy Hart told me, he said, the only way you can really judge how fans are reacting to something is by the chants that they give in the ring and by the signs that they bring. They make their own signs. They bring them to the arena. We have nothing to do with it. So you can always tell what's getting over by the signs that people are holding out. And I thought that was a pretty good point. So I took that to heart. And I said, look at all these signs in the crowd. They're waiting for this match. They want to see Goldberg kill me, so let's make him pay for it. I got nothing else going on. Bill's not doing anything. So, and then Goldberg was just flipping out. He's like, I'm the guy that stands in the sparks. I breathe in smoke. I breathe in sparks. I breathe in fire. I'm the world champ. And I said, yeah, if I kick you in the nuts right now, you'll go down just like everybody else. And this...
Well, you did. Didn't you have to choke him out or something?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you the story in a bit, but Bischoff goes, hey, calm down, boys. You guys shouldn't be fighting. And then Hogan actually was like, okay, well, he has a point here. What do you suggest we do tonight, Chris? And I said, well, let me go to the ring. I'll do a promo with Mean Gene. I'll once again brag that, Goldberg's scared of me and he's not here. And then midway through my promo, do a split screen where Goldberg shows up in the arena and sees me in the ring and flips out and comes down to the ring. And as he's walking down the aisle, I'll be walking down the aisle with my back to the entranceway, basking in the glory of the fans. And when I turn around, have Goldberg do like a 30-yard dash and spear me in the aisleway, like the biggest spear of all time.
Yeah.
And then after that, he challenges me to the pay-per-view, and then at the pay-per-view, he kills me. And actually, Hulk was like, that's a great idea, and Eric agreed to it, and Goldberg agreed to it, and that's what we did, and it was great. He speared me right down the aisle and just murdered me, and it was so cool. And then I had him gorilla press me like into the guardrail, and just really whip my ass. And then he's like, then I'll see you at the pay-per-view. And then the final story is I show up at the pay-per-view, and Bill's not there. He decided to go hunting instead. So I worked with Bobby Duncan Jr., and that was the end of it. We never had a
Bill went. I don't. Where was I? I must have been in the bar at the hotel.
Maybe you were.
I don't remember that because back in those days, man, I was just, as you know, I was ducking, hiding, punching. I never thought about hiding upstairs that they couldn't find me. Damn it.
Yeah. That was an old
because
trick.
I was putting over everybody. Goldberg. Goldberg was the least of my problems. I was trying to get away from Conan. God. Jesus Christ.
But, and that's what I figured. Like, if I can't make money, figuratively, because you didn't make any money in WCW, whether you were an angle or not, you made what you made, whatever your contract was. But if I can't be a part of this angle, which is a money-making angle, then this is the best chance I have. If they're not going to go with it now, I have no chance. Like, I'm done here.
Yeah.
So that's when I decided to go. And then even though I verbally made an agreement with Bischoff to re-sign the deal, he never gave it to me. And months went by, and I was like, you know what? If this was Hogan or any, 9WO guys, and you made a deal, those papers would be in the mail the next week, and you'd sign them. I just felt like he cared so little about me as a character on the show. He wasn't even going to be bothered to deliver the papers. And by the time he delivered the papers, it was like 6 months later. At that point, I was like, I'm not signing them. And then, then we got in a real argument about that. And then his punishment for that was to take me off TV and just have me work house shows for the last 4 months of my contract, but I still got paid my deal. So that was my punishment. It's a big punishment, right? Like,
yeah, that's not bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah, I sat home for a year. I know you remember that. He just blew up. I took Reed to an amateur wrestling tournament and missed Thunder, of all things, Thunder in Tallahassee.
But I remember that, Rick. I mean, you've heard the story many times. It was in Minneapolis where he said, he was going to starve you and your family and cause you to move out into the streets.
I know.
Who does that?
Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, and at the time, I don't know what was going on in that place. It was the pressures or the stress, but everybody, not everybody, but so many people were just total assholes there at the time. So many people, I don't want to start naming guys, but when they got to WWE, they all had different attitudes.
Yeah.
But, I'll say one now because I talk to him about it all the time. He's one of my best friends in business, The Big Show. Big Show was a total dick in WCW.
Yeah.
And he'll admit it. That's just the environment. That it breeded that environment of just being a jerk. And then you get out of that environment and go to work for Vince, you lose that attitude pretty quickly, man.
Yeah, so, the thing about Big Show, I was there the night that he came around. We met in Chicago, and he grew up in a little town 30 miles from Charlotte, so a big fan of mine and my career. And so when they hired him, I go, guys, let's make him somebody's bodyguard. Well, right away he had to be Andre's son. I said, you can't call him Andre the Giant's son. What are you talking about?
Right.
I mean, me who knows Andre, he and I broke in together, friends forever. I even wrestled Andre, believe it or not, in 3 single matches for the championship, which is absurd. But I probably wrestled him in 1,000 tag matches over the years, with the Andersons and back in Mid-Atlantic when he was rolling and all those tag matches when he came in for a week, which was a great time in life with him. And he and I were good friends, and I said to those guys, you can't call Paul or Big Show Andre the Giant's son. I mean, it's almost disrespectful. Does it make sense?
And it totally buried Big Show right off the bat, too.
Oh, I buried him, man. I said, make him somebody's bodyguard. I mean, while he learns and when he gets a character, then he takes off on his own. But, once again, it was their way or the highway, right? So he had no choice, but it was... being a friend and being a fan of Andre the Giant's, knowing he didn't have a son, that was a lot. I thought that was a lot of unnecessary pressure to put on Big Show.
Well, it's one of those things, too, just because he's a giant, and then you make him Andre's son, and then you put him in the same outfit that Andre wore. And right off the bat, you're just putting... I've always found that, a fake brother, a Lance Von Erich, or, an Andre the Giant's son, or any of that stuff, it never works.
Yeah.
You're way better off to just have the guy be his own guy, but that was kind of the way of wrestling back in those days. So we'll bring him in and make him so-and-so's brother, so automatically he'll get over. Name one fake brother or fake son that ever got over. There's not many, No, I agree, because I was part of that Lance Von Erich thing, and that didn't fly at all. Yeah, because people knew it, right? Yeah. They knew it, so then it just makes everything else seem like bullshit.
Yeah. Well, Chris, moving along here, because I only got you for an hour, so there's so much to talk about. Tell me, because you guys are so open about it, not him, he's never mentioned it to me, but so when you and Hunter first hook up, you and him didn't hit it off very well, right?
No, we didn't like each other at all. And
see, that's all the stuff I missed. See, I was still sitting around at WCW when you and him were taking off, and I was, instrumental in helping him leave WCW because a lot of people don't know this. Bischoff gave me a contract to give to Hunter for $250,000, which for a kid in the business for a couple of years was huge. A lot of money. 1993 or whatever it was, and he said, "No, I'm going. I grew up on the East Coast, and I'm going to go to WWF." And I mean, obviously it worked out for him, but I mean, he probably could have because they liked him enough, and he was Regal's partner at that time. He probably could have got himself a $500,000 deal, but he wouldn't even entertain the thought of it. And I didn't blame him. He, that's the funny thing is, and God rest his soul, but so when he made up his mind he was leaving, Savage was coming in, right? So Savage wanted to beat him in 1 minute. And I said, absolutely not. I never had so much heat with anybody. Randy said, well, I'll beat him in 1 minute. He's leaving. I said, that ain't how that works here. This guy is, he's not going to go up there getting beat by you in a minute and start his career. And Randy was so mad. So I did have some influence. Then I said, but you can wrestle Arn to Broadway for the TV title tonight for 20 minutes. So they went out there for Arn, because Randy wasn't in shape to wrestle 20 minutes. Christ. So he's watching the show Saturday on the playback, and he calls me at home and says, God damn it, I look like shit out there. I said, buy a Stairmaster, and I hung up on him. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he wanted to beat Hunter in like 1 minute, the mentality of that stuff. And I said, guys, that's not flying here. This guy has worked his butt off. He's headed out to start his life. You've got enough victories. You don't need to beat somebody in 1 minute, right? So, and that was kind of the mindset for WCW for a lot of guys. That's why I think everyone wanted to get out of there. If you were a younger guy in WCW, you could see that if you wanted to make your name and really be a top guy, it wasn't really the right place because all the top guys were already cemented in there. Mm-hmm. So it was hard as a young guy. So you did want to leave because you knew, in my case, I wasn't offered half as much money from WWE as I was by WCW, but I didn't care. It wasn't about the money. It was about going there to make a name for myself and to become what I always thought that I could be and what I always dreamt of being, And once again, you asked me about Hunter, and I think going back to what I said earlier in the show is that the Monday Night Wars were real. So when I came to WWE all by myself, I didn't have a gang. I had no friends there because all my friends were still in WCW. I was a real, not ostracized, but I was like, that's the guy from WCW. He's one of those guys that vowed to put us out of business. And I think that's one of the reasons why Hunter didn't like me. We've talked about this since. We're actually really close friends now. But at the time, instead of looking at it as I'm a painter and I have an extra color of paint that I can work with now, it was like, this guy is the enemy. And they didn't know if I got fired up there or if my deal had expired. They didn't know that I had taken a big chance to come to WWE for the right reasons. So there was a lot of animosity. And plus, once again, like I said, very honest guy and doing what I thought was best to get my character over as a heel so that those guys could have a good opponent to be with and they could beat somebody that had some steam. Mm-hmm. When you get a guy coming over from WCW saying that, WWE is boring, place sucks, it needs to be saved, everybody in the back is terrible or whatever I was saying, you're getting guys in the back that are going, who does this guy think he is? And I don't blame him. If it was me sitting back there, I would have probably done the same thing. So it was very rough for me when I first came in. And plus my first feud in the WWE was against China. Vince put me against her and said, do you have any problems working with a woman? I said no, even though I'm thinking, are you kidding me? But always put on a smile, and you of all people know this. Do the best you can with what you're given. I'm sure China was a better worker than Rufus R. Jones.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
So,
oh yeah. Well, actually, I saw both you and didn't Eddie work with her too at one time?
Yeah.
You had a hell of a match with her. That was great.
You know what? I appreciate you saying that because I'm not a guy to toot my own horn, but I did have a hell of a match with her. As a matter of fact,
No, you did, Chris, and I watched it, and because I thought to myself, this tells you, because even though she was a woman, she was a big, well-built woman, right? And she could actually work, but she's only going to be
over. She was over, Rick, as you know, which is the biggest thing. She was over.
Oh,
so
yeah, but you made her look like you were wrestling Ricky Steamboat. I mean, I watched it. I went, holy shit! This is big time stuff. And I never got to see her in her prime. I've seen her a couple times since, but for obvious reasons, I avoid that relationship. But I mean, she's always very cordial to me. But I never met her when she was in her prime or wrestling. But you and Eddie both had a hell of a match with her. I thought, God, that's pretty cool because she was big enough and strong enough. To actually,
and that's the thing. Once again, I came in and I cut some pretty scathing promos on her because I thought that's what I'll get out of this. And also, too, a lot of people in that era, they didn't want to see me wrestling a woman. A lot of people, like, I had a pretty good fan base. They thought it was bullshit. So I thought, the stiffer I can be on her, the better it's going to be for this angle. So, and the missing piece of the puzzle is at the time, she was Hunter's girlfriend. So, and when I went to talk to Vince personally, he said, do you have any problems working with a woman? I said, well, no. And he said, I don't want you to go easy on her. I don't want you to think of her as a woman. I want you to go in there and work. So, you know my style. I'm not stiff, but I work hard.
No, wait a minute. Wait a minute, Kate. Now, wait a minute. Were you making a statement or asking a question?
Well, I was kind of...
The lion tamer is okay. The rest of the stuff is pretty snug. I just passed that along from your father, probably, from being raised that way. Yeah.
That's the way I was trained in Canada.
Yeah, there's no denying that Chris Jericho, the word would be snug.
Yeah, okay, so there you go. Snug is the word. I like that word. I'll take snug. But once again, that's dungeon style, it's Japanese style. It's no excuse to be hurting people, but I work snug, exactly. That's a
well, the good thing, you're safe. The word snug is good, and you're very safe, And the other thing is, which is a tribute to you, a lot of guys mind. You don't mind getting your ass kicked either. You're not afraid of anything, and guys have jumped on you and potatoed you. I mean, our business isn't as perfect. You would have been good for Brody. He had enough of me. I don't know how you were lucky enough to miss Brody and Hanson. You'd have been right up their alley.
But I used to have that deal with guys like Bob Holly or Benoit or guys like that.
Yeah.
People with shame in this day and age. It's like, hit me as hard as you can. Don't break my nose. Don't knock out my teeth. But hit me as hard as you can. Forehead,
it doesn't hurt. Yeah, we get hit harder. Hurt. I've had a guy punch me in the bar, and I'll say to him, I've been hit harder with working punches.
That's what Ricky Morton told me. He said, can you hit me with a shoot punch? I said, why? It's because your working punches are killing me.
Yeah.
So we had the match we had one match in Detroit, and we had another one in Miami, and the Miami one was really good. And afterwards, I felt really good about it. And when I went back to talk to her afterwards, she's been really cold to me. And she was in a room with Hunter, and I came in the room, they were both staring at me. And I could tell that, it was one of the things that I walked in on a conversation. And she had tiny black eyes. Something that happened, I didn't kick her in the face or something. In the course of the match, something went down. And, and she was snug, too, by design. I said, you have to be snug because, people need to buy this. Anyways, the next day in Tampa, I show up. And I get called to Vince's office. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get, a pat on the back for having this great match with China. And when I went in there, man, he went ballistic on me about how dare I give China a black eye because she's a woman. How could you do this to a woman? And I'm thinking to myself, you told me not to go easy on her in the first place. But, and then, and he went nuts on me. He said, you're green as grass. I was sold a bill of goods when you got here. This is a good one. Your contract isn't worth the paper it's printed on. And it's like, oh, my God. I just got this horrible verbal beatdown, and Jack Lanza was in the room, and Jim Ross was in the room, and all three of them were just staring at me. This is nuts on me. And probably about 3 months after I first arrived. And, and I was like, I'm done here. I'm finished, And he said to me after this long, he accused me of being egotistical and, what's the word he used? An elitist. You're an elitist. And all of this stuff. And I think it all came down from those, from the Hunter's crew. I think they didn't like me. They didn't like the way I was conducting myself. And they had Vince's ear. They had a lot of stroke. They had a lot of influence. And I think it was one of those times when Vince just said, you know what, you're right. And he was very, very specific in telling me that I had one more chance to have a good match. He said, because every other match I had was terrible. Even though I had probably the best match of the show the night before in Miami, but I didn't say anything. I wasn't gonna. I don't work like that.
What was that? Was that with China in Miami?
That was with China. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
China and Miami. Yeah. And I wasn't gonna start saying, "What are you talking?" I was just kind of sat there. Thank you, sir. And I have another type of a vibe, and just let him go off, and let him say what he wanted to say. And so then he made me go apologize to China, which was brutal. Because I don't like to apologize to anybody, especially for that. But it's like, I told Benoit this, and talked to Bret Hart about it. And Bret said that Vince had done something similar to him when he first started. He says he likes to break people down and build you back up like a soldier, Maybe at the time that's what he was doing. I don't know. But I do know I had to go apologize to China, and then I had a match with X-Pac. And at the time, X-Pac was Vince's darling. Hell of a worker, Shawn. And Vince said, if you can't have a good match with X-Pac, then you're fired. So tonight, you better have a good match or you're fired. So it was like one of those real-life things, like good match or fired match, Jericho versus X-Pac. And went in there, and I actually went to Shawn. I was like, dude, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Like, I don't know what's good. I don't know what's bad. I've been doing this for 9 years. And right now I feel like a first-match rookie. So whatever you want to do, I'll do it because I don't have a clue what's up. And we went out there and we had a good match. And when I came back through the curtain, I didn't say anything to Vince. He didn't say anything to me. And then after the show, I said, is everything okay? And he's like, absolutely, pal. Everything's great. And then that was the end of it. Yeah. So I had to start my rebuilding phase. But very strange way to enter this company that I'd been dreaming about going to for 9 years and been on top everywhere I'd ever been, and then kind of busted right back down. And I'm not saying it's specifically because of Hunter. I'm sure I had heat with probably everybody just because of the way I came in by myself and the way I was, just being Chris Jericho as a character. But Hunter definitely didn't like me, and I'm sure he had probably had no problems telling Vince that. So that was kind of the way that I started, and that's how the heat between us began.
Yeah, well, going back to Waltman could work. That's never been his problem, man. He could really go in the ring. I've always felt bad because of the personal issues, but there's no denying how good he was in the ring. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, and once again, as we get older, you look back on stuff and you go, man, was I ever stupid then, or was that ever the wrong way to do things? And Shawn's actually been very cool over the last few years in saying, like, I was a real jerk to you, and I did my fair share of bearing you as well. And, pretty much a stand-up guy at this point and realizes
he goes out of his way to be played. I mean, I never had a problem with ever. I just, like you, was caught in that whole thing. And I never, it's funny, I'm not implying I had a problem with Kevin or Scott or Waltman, but it was just the NWO. It was like, God, I even said one time, why can't I be in it, right? Are you kidding me? So I mean, if I'm not going to win, I just wanted to do something,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, instead of going home, if you're going to bring me to TV, I can only wrestle Conan so many times, you know what I mean? And,
right.
And I mean, that's where I was going. I mean, it was just a slide, you saw it. I mean, I was basically, and as you know, like at the end of my career, I thought it was. I mean, actually, and I just did Austin's podcast, and Steve asked me that question. I've had the discussion with you. I mean, my problems twice, I had major anxiety and insecurity issues. You know what I mean? I mean, it can only beat you down so bad. But I really think that if they hadn't brought me back in 2001, that my legacy would never be anywhere near what it is now, even though I was 53 years old in 2001 and retired at 59. Does that make sense? 51. Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't had those 7 years with you guys running around, in my 50s, my legacy wouldn't be anywhere near what it would be, even though the people would say, oh, Flair Steamboat, Flair Sting, Flair Dusty. I mean, that was, different decades, and yes, do people recognize it? But from 2001 with you guys until I retired, I had the best time of my life. I was 59 years old, but you guys, I tell these people these stories all the time. I mean, and I've openly talked to you about my not anxiety, but I had the Sigourney Weaver thing going on, man. I was walking against the wall, afraid to go out of my house. I swear to God.
To think of, but that's the thing, Rick. It's interesting because I had the same thing, and Shawn had the same thing. Where you have this beginning of your career where you're critically acclaimed and you're known for a certain amount of whatever, then you go away and come back and start out a little bit shaky, but then you go on to the second half of your career to where you become a true legend at that point. Not that you weren't, but I totally know what you're saying, because when I left the WWE in 2005, I was falling down the ladder big time. And I was decided to leave, and when I decided to leave, I got called into a meeting with Johnny Ace and Vince, where I am convinced they were going to dump my contract. Like, not let me go, but if you're making $500,000, we're going to offer you $350,000 for this next round of contracts. And if you don't like it, you can leave. And I said, before you even say a number, I'm just letting you know I'm leaving. What do you mean you're leaving? I'm done. And I left for 2.5 years. And when I came back, it was 2007. I did okay. And then I turned heel with that Bockwinkel-esque suit-wearing, big word-using character.
Yeah.
And I hooked up with Shawn, where we had this amazing storyline from 2008 and 2009.
The match in Seattle. The match in Seattle. The whole world remembers that. It was great.
Yeah, but that was before I left. That was in 2003. That was the first time.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Then in 2000, remember when I punched his wife? And all that.
That's right. Yeah, God.
Yes.
God.
That was the second half, and that was this amazing 8-month. Listen to this 8-month long storyline.
Yeah. Okay.
Who does 8-month storylines anymore? You know what I mean? It was just one of those perfectly mixed, perfectly matched, and that's where I became the real Chris Jericho. Like you said, the last, whether I retire tomorrow or whether I continue for a few more years, that's when I really reached this potential of what I thought I could be and what Vince thought I could be. And that's when I really got it. After 18 years of being on the job, I really became, who I am today as far as a performer, consistency, diversity, versatility, all the things that I always thought I could be. But I needed that time away. And when I came back, it was a little shaky, because you are a little bit second-guessing yourself. And I remember even you were working with me at the time.
No, I was having those six-mans were the best.
Yeah. I mean, before that, we were working single matches.
Yep.
And even in your book, you wrote a really cool description. You said, "Thanks for helping me become Ric Flair again." And
no, I did. I always thanked you because you carried me. You guys were carrying me. Hey, I got to tell you something. I just had a good point to make. Oh, shoot. No, you mentioned something that I wanted to comment on. Because I do get confused, but the match you had with Shawn in Seattle was off the hook.
Oh, thanks.
Where was the match you had with him later on?
Well, the Seattle match was WrestleMania.
Yep.
But later on, it was a string of them. They started. I can't even remember. There was one in Omaha, and there was one in Portland, and
no. But I mean, what pay-per-view would it have been?
It was basically from April all the way until October. So we went through SummerSlam.
Okay, cool.
Those type of ones, and then the last match, the culmination, the blow-off, was a ladder match for the world title in Portland. And when people ask me, what's your favorite match, I always go back to that one. And the reason for that is it might not be the best match, technically. I mean, it was definitely whatever a 5-star match is supposed to be, it was that. But the reason why I always loved it the most is because it was the culmination of this 7-month angle. I said 8 months before, but it was 7 months that was supposed to be a one-night thing that turned into the 7-month thing that culminated for the world title on the main event of a pay-per-view in a ladder match. And it didn't start out, I didn't have the world title when it started. I got so over through this feud as the ultimate heel to Shawn's ultimate babyface that it became a world title feud. And I always take great pride in that. It's the perfect example when you get two guys who are locked in, and you'll know about this from working with Steamboat or some of the other guys you worked with. It's the perfect chemistry. The perfect bad guy and the perfect good guy.
Yeah.
It's this amazing chemistry, wrestling-wise, promo-wise, thought process, everything. It was the highlight of my career to know that you had this magic. And you know how it is, Rick, when you get that magic. You have thousands of matches, but how many of them were really magical? There's a handful. And how many of the programs that you have are really magical? And there's a handful.
Yeah.
And that's one of those ones I'll always look back on and go, that was the one, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm watching the show now, and just so you know, I'm going to give you a pat on the back. I was in talent relations the other day when they were scrambling to get you to go to India. and they're talking to legal. They say, can Jericho just get on a plane and fly over there? We'll take a chance. And legal would say, I don't think so. And I said to talent relations, I won't mention any names, I said, I don't think Jericho is going to go for that either, man, without a visa. Are you kidding me? He's not going to fly over there. He doesn't have to fly 48 hours just to have fun.
And that's...
Oh, they were scrambling, man. We got to get Jericho over there.
I love that it's a billion-dollar company. It still has that old-school mentality of just put them on a plane and see what happens.
I know.
I get put in Indian jail for 2 weeks, and they just sit back going, well, sorry.
Yeah, I did that with Carlos Colon in the 80s in Santo Domingo, man, and they almost kept me in jail for a month. I was running down the ramp to Carlos Colon, man, because I went in without a passport, right? And they was trying to get on American Airlines to go to Miami. Those guys were getting on Eastern going back to when I was wrestling at Victor, or that, what's that kid's name? Jack Veneno. And so I ran and I got in that plane. I said, you guys aren't leaving me here, man. Forget this. So ultimately I went back again, but I had my passport. But holy cow. Yeah, that's not received very well.
Yeah, they don't like that too much when you try and do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and so. India basically is a third world country anyway. We're pretty close, and we don't know for sure. Hey, listen, let me ask you another question, because you're always so spot on, but I know that Shawn's your favorite wrestler of all time, right? You've said that to me.
Yeah, Shawn, yeah, for what I liked in my generation, yeah, he was my favorite of all time.
Yeah, he's great, and he's happy and home. It's funny because... You know how you have the ability, which is great, you know, and you're probably a couple years younger than Shawn. You got to be probably... Yeah,
I'm 5 years younger than he is.
Are you 45?
Yeah.
And he's 50. Okay, so, but Shawn ain't going to budge. I mean, they want Shawn so bad for the Royal Rumble, right? And he's not coming off that ranch in Abilene for anything, man. And it's nice that you can do, and I tell people this age, Chris has got the best of both worlds, because his love is wrestling, but his other really true love is music. So when he comes on for 3 or 4 months at a time, gets his gig in, has fun, stays on TV, then he takes off for 3 or 4 months with the band and travels around the world.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
As a matter of fact, you were playing somewhere one night, and I was going to come see you. Right, you were at the Hard Rock in Orlando or something like that?
Yeah.
And I was doing a show, and they said Chris Jericho was playing over it. And, of course, I've been there when you guys played live in Norfolk one time. Was that WCW or WWE?
That was WWE. We did an angle with you. You came out and smashed the...
Yeah, just to get my ass kicked. I don't know why I did that. No, but I mean... And
that's the thing, Rick. You know, when I started, I mentioned earlier, you know, I always wanted to be in a rock band and I wanted to be a wrestler. Those are my two goals and my two passions. And I've done both my whole life, but just music has really started getting big over the last 5 or 6 years. We've really started to carve out a good niche for ourselves. But And then that's why I do come and go. And also, too, I think it's better. It gives me longevity. Physically, I still feel great, but, I mean, I don't want to be working 4 days a week, 5 days a week, every week. It's just not where my head is at anymore.
Yeah.
And, but I still love to do this. So I'll come back and do it because it's fun. And as a matter of fact, the last year, I didn't even do TV. I just came back and did just
No, I know.
live.
I saw you. I mean, literally, guys, Chris and I were on a flight, and I'm just reminiscing for a minute here. On our way, we're literally on the tarmac, and he's telling me about this podcast. And so I called Melinda, my agent, and she goes, "Oh, there's no money in that." I said, "No, I'm telling you, this guy's making big money, man. And Austin's making more only because he's had his podcast a couple years more."
Yeah.
So now I'm finding out, I was way off on my numbers that we talked about in the garden, but now I have actual numbers, and we're like at almost like 190,000 downloads a week now. So I'm way behind you in Austin, but I'll keep plugging them. If I could have you on a couple more times, it would sure help.
Well, like I said, you've been like the white whale for me, too. You're the elusive Flair that I can't seem to get on the show.
God. Anyway, here's the deal. We get drunk in Australia, and he wants to do it at 4 a.m. I go, God, I'm tired.
That's not true.
It is too true. Come on down to my room. We're hammered. We've been drinking beer for 5 hours. So I'm going to do it for you in Orlando or at Raw next week. Bring it.
Well, no, dude, there's no rush. But it's funny because I told you that this could be something good. And you know what I like about podcasting, too, is it's fun to do it because you get a chance to sit down and talk with your friends because, you and I see each other all the time, but how often do you really get a chance to sit down and chat because you got to work or I got to work or you got to do this or take a phone call here? It gives you a chance to actually connect with your longtime friends that you haven't had a chance to talk to.
Well, that's what's nice.
Friends.
That's what's nice about these international tours. And then, all Chris and I did, we just had fun,
Yeah, and that's what I really appreciate doing that because it's fun to be able to have that relationship.
It's a long flight. We're sitting first class. What else are you going to do? Now I'm not going to tell the story, which I should, but I won't. But there was a time in the last 6 months that Chris boarded a plane with Hulk and Kevin Nash. I didn't happen to be there, but it was a 5-hour flight, and Chris. Yeah. And Chris,
I'll tell the story.
And
I'll
Chris,
tell it. I don't mind.
And Chris, who can drink vodka, said, "Let's do it." So, Chris, tell the story. It's great.
Yeah, it's great because once again, you when you're a younger guy, you have a lot of anger and piss and vinegar, and then you grow up a bit and kind of mellow out. So, we were in Portland for Raw, and we were flying back home, and I was on a red eye with.
It was after Australia.
Yes, exactly. After Australia, so you're already half wigged out from jet lag as it is. And I ended up sitting next to Kevin Nash. And I know Kevin, but never really had a chance to just sit down and shoot the breeze with dudes, And we had a great time. And I was like, let's have some drinks. And so we started drinking. And he's like, what are you drinking? I said, I'm drinking vodka on the rocks, which is what I
he just drinks straight vodka on the rocks, man. I mean, I like vodka, and no one can say I haven't drank a lot of it. But I can't drink it on the rocks. I got to have something sweet with it. But Chris is on this diet, so the abs are always immaculate.
Yeah, it's alcoholic drink,
Don't tell me you're doing Diamond Dallas Page aerobics. I'm not going to buy that.
Yoga. Diamond Dallas Page aerobics.
Are you doing DDP yoga? Don't tell me that.
Oh, I have been for about 4 years. Yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Oh God, I just can now. Yeah. This is going to eliminate you from Hall of Fame contention sooner or later.
I'll tell you what, man. I sure felt like a mark when you do it because he's got some poses that are named after do the DDP bang pose and do the Hulk up, and I felt like the biggest mark. I was like, if Chris and Eddie saw me doing this now, they'd be laughing their heads off.
Oh God!
But it works.
Yeah. Well, I'm announcing right now on Wooooo Nation that you are a follower of DDP aerobics or yoga. Excuse me. So tell the story.
We're on the plane, and we're having a great conversation. And Hulk gets involved, and me and Hulk and Nash, and we're up in the first class, the galley area, and they're telling us to sit down, and you guys can't be doing this. You're keeping these guys awake. And the one line was the stewardess goes, "Mr. Jones in 3C has a multi-million-dollar meeting tomorrow. And I think it was Hulk. So if he's got a multi-million-dollar meeting tomorrow, why didn't he take a private jet? Why is he sitting up front with all us idiots? So we're just drinking and hanging out. And then I sit down, and I don't know what happened, after all of this traveling. And in Australia, we were having some cocktails as well. So I had to throw up. And I was like, but I didn't even know. Some of those were just escapes. And I threw up, on myself. So I was like, wow, I just threw up on myself. I can't believe it. So I got some napkins from the stewardess, and I wiped the stuff up. I'm like, okay, this is good. I don't notice it. It's all gone. Fine. So we finished the flight, catch a couple hours of sleep. I get up. I walk through the airport. Kevin goes his way, and now it's me and Hulk and Johnny Ace. And we're walking through the airport, and we're hanging out and having some breakfast. And then go on to the next flight. And I sit down on the next flight, and I smell something weird. And it smells like puke. I'm like, man, that's pretty strong. I look over, and I still got puke all over my right side. Like I thought I had wiped it all up, but I didn't even barely touch it. It's everywhere. And I look over at Hulk. I'm like, did you notice this? He's like, brother, he's been sticking up the joint for the last hour. I'm like, why didn't you tell me this? Guy's like, we thought it was funny. I'm walking through the airport covered in my own puke. 6-time world champion, Chris Jericho. There you go, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I still can't get over the fact that you beat the system down here in Atlanta. I won't tell the story. If it was me, I'd still be in jail. That's another story.
Yeah, let's just say I didn't beat the system. I'll tell you about it later.
I won't bring it up.
Yeah, I didn't do as well as I thought I was going to do. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. Well, I thought you did. I just know if it was me, I'd still be in there. Christ almighty. So my ex-wives, Ric Flair's ex-wife, why can't it just be Jackie or Tiffany instead of Ric Flair's wife? I mean, in jail for the third time. What the hell? God, hey, listen, man, thank you so much. What a great time.
Hey, Rick, anytime, man. I'll be happy to do your show again. It's always fun to talk with you. And like I said, this is the tip of the iceberg of things we could
I know.
Let's do it again.
Yeah, I know you're signed up all the way through Mania, they told me, so I'll see you a lot. Hopefully, I'm really having fun with Charlotte, in her corner and that, and she's liking the... Yeah,
man, she's doing great. It's great to see, and it's so funny because there's stories we could tell about her when she was probably 17 or 18 years old. We brought her to England, but we won't tell those stories either.
You could tell her. There's a Dublin, Ireland. You're the one that set it up.
She stole a bottle of vodka from the bar because we were out and we didn't know what to do, and she was like, Dad, look what I've got.
She was a junior in high school. Yeah, thank you.
It's great, yeah. And then she ended up wearing Hurricane's tights, and her friend was wearing my tights. And nothing lascivious happened.
No, I wasn't with you. I went to bed. She just said, Dad, can I go with those guys? I said, yeah, you're safe with Jericho and Hurricane. I'm not sure about anybody else, but
they were
they'll
safe
guard you.
But they still, safe, but still having a good time. And I was laughing. And it's like, why do you have those on? And now here she is, Divas champion, and doing a great job, man. It's definitely a chip off the old block. And she's behaving herself now. That's the world that we live in.
I know.
In the company.
Chris, you can't get her off the treadmill to get her to have a drink. It's too much.
Yeah.
She worked. Did you see her cover on Muslim Fitness?
Sorry? I saw it yesterday in the airport.
Yeah.
It was great.
She lives for the workout. And, it's fun. All that stuff that, we do to this day, you and I, she got over that in the last couple of years. So, I mean, she's so committed to the business. I've never seen anything like it. It's just, me, I was committed, but I had to have fun at night. I mean, you know the deal. Yeah. You too.
She grew up and we haven't.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, guess what? And not planning to anytime soon.
That's right. Exactly.
Thanks, Chris.
Anytime, champ.
My best to you and your family, okay? How are the twins doing? Good?
Yeah, they're good, man. I got to go pick up from school in a couple hours, so they're doing great.
All right. Well, God bless you, buddy. Thank you for everything.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you soon. Thanks, man. Bye.